And we'll watch some Borderlands. I'll watch Borderlands with you, man. Why not?
That's a big ask, man. I don't know about that. That's a lot of time. All right. So we are live. So hello everyone and thank you for tuning in. I am pumped to be here again today with Colin, where we're going to dig in some of the biggest conversations happening here in games right now. We're going to talk about transmedia storytelling. We're going to, especially with Borderlands coming out, it's got a whole lot of transmedia behind it, for better and for worse. What does it mean for the franchise? We're going to break down Riot's 2KXO that is in closed beta. Where does it fit into the fighting genre? Is it making any noise on the charts here? And we're going to talk into UGC as well and see if UGC, how it's reshaping the industry, giving games longer legs, letting people become more creative in it. This is a live chat for those of you who are watching. We appreciate it. We're going to stream some game videos as well to see if it makes it more entertaining. Colin, I've been talking. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel it's a crazy time of year for us. There's just a lot of stuff going on in terms of the gaming industry. It just feels like one week after another, a thing is coming out the pipeline. And so to that end, busy but good. It's really fun to analyze the market and kind of see like what's happening in a fall that we were like, it's really, really packed fall, and it's kind of very much born to be true, to be exactly what we thought it would be. It's a really packed fall.
We like busy falls, though, right? It's lots of good games coming up, and it's gonna shake up this starting next month, right? Or starting this month, we're probably having some good games coming out, right? So,
Yeah,
for,
no, for
where do you want
sure.
to kick it off with today?
Well, and then like also like last time we did this, and like I think it was in the ether, it was like Call of Duty got picked up for, the rights by Paramount or whatever. I'm not a media entertainment person, so I'll just say whatever that blob is, right? And I was like, well, yeah, this should have happened a long time ago. And I still stand on the corner of, if made correctly, this movie would do like $1 billion worldwide, just because I think the fandom is there, et cetera, et cetera. But did like kind of kick me into thinking like, well, like what is like, you hear this word all the time, like transmedia, which I think is the most oddest term for this stuff, but
It's like a
I
very
don't
old
get it.
school name for something that's coming back with a cooler technology.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, media that jumps over things. Like, is that what they called books when they turned them into movies back in like the 1930s, like transmedia? I don't know, but like whatever. Right? So it's in vogue, and when I hear that word, I go, oh, I mean games becoming movies or TV shows or whatever, like jumping mediums. It's basically kind of what that term means. And so I was like, I feel like I've lived through this as a person, and so it caused me to reflect and then kind of think through like my thoughts. And then I was writing about it, and then for the first time ever in my weekly patch notes newsletter from us over at Screen Engine, is I mind game, follow it if you don't. But like it kind of got to a point where I was like, I have to cut this off and turn it into a part two, because I just didn't even get to the things of like what would make good transmedia, in my opinion, from an outside perspective. But like it caused me to reflect. So I'll start there. I would love your thoughts. You're my ilk and generation. Like I look back and I'm like, man, the 90s.
The
Like,
Super
wow.
Mario Brothers movie, the OG, was one of the creepiest movies, yet classic movies that has ever come out. I don't know what they were smoking when they decided to make that movie, but it just, I think from then on for transmedia, people were afraid to touch it. I think movies that became games were shit. Games that became movies were shit. It's just like the two industries didn't meld until, I don't even know what the first one you would want to say successful is. And we did talk about it last week, the Call of Duty. I don't want to jump too far around here, right? But I love transmedia, and I love it more from the chance of an indie game to get noticed because maybe they write lore about it. And maybe you realize, hey, this game I'm building is actually going to be a better book, or it's going to be a better graphic novel, or vice versa, right? I think when you're an indie developer and you're trying to create something, you can create transmedia or have your community help you with that to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm picturing. And that's kind of like feedback in a way of, hey, people are playing that. If people are willing to engage with you at that moment, it means that they're going to probably stay with you for the long haul.
No, totally. And like for me, it's funny you bring up Mario. That's where my memory starts. I had the little toy of Mario with the like rocket boots. I remember
Nice.
this action figure. So like I like, this movie is weird. This is not the Goombas. It's like a giant guy, and then Bowser is whatever, right? And it's like, this is really weird. And he turns into a T-Rex at the end, and you're like, what is this movie, right? So like But it wasn't all bad. Like there was a point in that era that so like a little human story, like kind of kickstarted in the back of my brain is like the movie that stood out for me in Transmedia that was just amazing, and I still legit would stand by it, say it holds the test of time, is the original '90s Mortal Kombat. So
We have
my
Tim in chat that just mentioned the Mortal Kombat was decent for what it was, and it only had the Johnny Cage Goro part where it's just like, boom,
oh,
amazing.
but it was basically a kung fu movie that was a kung fu movie, and it was what it was. And they land on the lore and the silliness of it all, and kind of I think nailed it right vibe wise. It's like yeah, and they made Scorpion so awesome, and like all the memories and like my. So what brought it back to my kind of my memory hole is like my son in his middle Little League walkout song is the Mortal Kombat song because he discovered on the algorithm of Spotify and he just loves the song. And I'm like, yeah, that song is a banger, man. It's probably the most memorable thing of that movie. So it's like you had that like high point, but then obviously the sequel Annihilation is terrible. So like they didn't sustain that for that franchise. And I just think like there was just like a multi-decade run of just like mediocrity at best. Like I don't like I posted like Rotten Tomato scores for like Resident Evil. Like I don't remember the movie being terrible, but I remember being very meh. And that's kind of probably my feeling of it is like, can they make these into not like cash grabs to me as a fan of the IP? And like just kind of felt like the answer was no. Like I always remember like Assassin's Creed, the movie just didn't even ignore the fact that it was like coming from this incredibly crazy lore based game and try to reset it and like make it's like it's just they don't adapt it for what it is. They tried to like turn it into like a almost like a wrapper for like we're going to make an action adventure movie set in the desert. So we're just going to take this IP and put it as a wrapper around it and sell it that way, as opposed to making something that is like very much astute of like I understand the game, I understand the fandom around it, I understand like the lore, whatever, right? And so like this didn't exist.
Yeah,
And
and
then until I would love your thoughts because I haven't until there was a moment it's in my newsletter, but until and I will remember this forever
um,
until Castlevania came out on Netflix, and I was like,
Castlevania.
"Oh my god, this show's amazing!" I
It's one
just
of the
like,
animes, right? I didn't get into that, but
yeah,
yeah, I heard it was
oh,
good.
it's amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. A plus show. I and they took a, I'm sorry, Konami, but a relatively dead franchise, recitated it, made by people who at least understood the game, the lore, and were able. And this is what I think Hollywood brings to games. They turned it into a story. They didn't make it a play-by-play repeat of a Castlevania game. They were inspired by Castlevania to turn it into something that was honestly awesome. And say what you want to say about Nocturne, which is fine. I don't hate it as much as other people do on the internet, but like the original 4 season run of Castlevania is just like A plus content. It's like they nailed it. They nailed Dracula. They nailed everything else around them. It's just it was a really really well told story, and all they did was basically, in my opinion, as a '90s guy, made Vampire Hunter D for the modern generation. It's like oh this with Castlevania, but there's also Castlevania lore, etc. So I thought that was the change, that turning point for this stuff. Like that was the for me the aha, this can actually be good.
There's a
And it
few.
took the crown away from
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat. It took it away. Like finally, Mortal Kombat was not the best game adaptation ever made. And to their credit, I can't imagine the director and the creators of that movie thought they would be that movie for as long as they were that movie.
Raul Julius turning in his grave somewhere. You won't even talk about Street Fighter. But
Oh,
there's a few things that you mentioned that I really love, and the first one I'd like to kind of equate it to audiences. When you build a game that is a movie or a movie that is a game, you should remember the audience that plays this game. Borderlands is a great example here, where who plays Borderlands? It's the looter shooter crew, right? They want to go around, they want to shoot, they want to loot. Then you come out with a movie, and you have all A plus or not even A listers. You have whatever Kevin Hart in there, right? Like they missed who their audience is, and they want to get a broader audience to come and watch the Borderlands movie. The problem is the people that play Borderlands don't care about having A-listers in their movie. They want a good movie. To your point, to some of the other ones that came out, Fallout's a good example, right? Like maybe they were known, and that's my mistake for not. I think the guy that played the guy with the nose, I don't know their names, right? Like I think he was famous, but like, you built a movie or a show for the gamers, right? And luckily you brought some other people in for interest, but you didn't try and cater to the general public. They tried to cater to the fans of the show. And the same thing happened in gaming, I think, when big media came into gaming, is they said, let's make these games for everyone, right? And then they kind of took away the personalities of games, and you see games like Dragon Age, Veilguard, where they tried to kind of whitewash it, for lack of better words. I don't know the best way to put it, and make it generic for everyone, remembering that the people that liked to play Dragon Age are kind of the hardcore RPG fans.
Yeah, no, I totally. So it's like know what you are and adapt toward it is maybe the mantra that you kind of described that I couldn't agree with more. And so like look at the Sonic films as like the next kind of step there, right? The Sonic films, objectively number wise, have improved movie over movie in global box office, right? That's the science. Like, oh yeah, this is actually working. And I would say Sonic the games have seen an uptick in our metric over time, especially after Sonic 3, which I think was like the real breakthrough. The first two movies came out in COVID. Like one came out at the beginning of COVID, one came out at the end of COVID. So very weird time. But then you like look back and you then realize it's only been 5 years and they've pumped out three movies. You're like, wow, that's an incredible run by Paramount and Sega, and culminating with the Sonic, the third one with Shadow, and now my kid, and his friends are just obsessed with Shadow, and like I think that is a great stepping stone for both Paramount because now they have a successful kids franchise, and that's what Sonic is. It's a kids franchise. You watch the animated content that's been around since the inception of Sonic. It's very kids oriented, right? He eats chili dogs. He's super silly. Robotnik is silly, right? The movies are pretty much the live action version of what I had recalled and seen in animated content for Sonic dating back to its inception of its step into transmedia, which has always been like anime, right? But live action kind of captures that. And they were true to the brand with the movies, and I think they're kind of seeing windfall from that. So it's like another example on the other end. It's not trying to be for everyone, it's trying to be for kids, and I think it's really successful at being for kids, right? But you kind of like it can miss too, right? I think it's what you're hitting on, right? Greg, it's like, yeah, but what if they don't nail it? And like my POV on that would be like just Borderlands as an example. It didn't do well in the box office, so objectively, it wasn't just didn't find the audience, and part of that, would be is like, oh, it just wasn't made for really anyone. Like people outside the gaming community were like, what is this thing? And the people inside were like, I don't think it is what I want it to be. It would be maybe an objective truth on that one. And then so you're like, well, what's the impact on the game? It's like, well, nothing. Nothing really happened really at all with the game. And like, is that bad or good? I would say just like it's an unfortunate missed opportunity is the best way I would classify that. It's like, man, you had the ability to put something out there that could have just grown the pie a lot, and it just didn't hit, and it was a missed opportunity. It's the best way to put it. It didn't hurt your brand. It didn't create like hatred toward the IP. It just was an unfortunate missed opportunity. And I think that's how I look at transmedia to kind of bridge into it holistically. It's like it's an opportunity to put your brand out there for gaming companies. So those who are in the gaming industry listening to this, like I think it's an opportunity to really put your brand out there in a way that goes beyond just buying media. So I just think it's just more effective than a marketing campaign if done well, because content lives for evergreen. It's forever if it's good, right? So it's something that can be out there, and I think that has a halo effect on the games, as the data objectively shows on our end. But also, I think it's just like blows the doors out of any kind of other conventional ways you would promote your brand and IP toward a game launch, right? So that's the other side of it. I think it's really good in terms of driving value that way.
Yeah, I think what people need to realize at the end of the day is that you're not competing with other games. You're competing with TikTok. You're competing with YouTube Shorts. You're competing with other forms of media that people can consume. So how do you get in front of those people that continue to drive these shorts or these other videos, right? You create content that can be seen on there, whether they just be short game clips like this or that transmedia. And, I don't want to keep digging into this topic too much, but I think it's interesting that Splinter Cell is coming out with a show on Netflix, yet I say people, it's probably a small niche of people really want to see Splinter Cell come back, but do you think it's wrong coming back with the and I guess it's the Castlevania route, the show before the game comes out again?
I think that's an interesting question. I think if I had a brand that had not been out for a while, or a brand that could really use a lot of attention toward it, so like one of the franchises I'm probably going to write about this week, given that we've seen the data, is Metroid. I think Metroid is an interesting character. Samus is interesting. She has a lot of lore behind that franchise. And heck, it has an entire subgenre named after it in Metroidvania. To go back to Castlevania, the other half of that one, right? And I just don't know if modern audiences care all that much about this game or this franchise as much as they once did, circa Metroid Prime, the original one, right? So how could you have gone about rebuilding the brand and the IP? Well, make an amazing sci-fi based show with Samus and live action or anime. I think either one could work. I think that's a place where they could have really done a lot of lifting in terms of reintegrating the brand into the kind of the zeitgeist of culture. Like, or even just a more example where you just see the proof of it. Devil May Cry. Like, DMC is awesome on Netflix, made by the Castlevania people, by the way, so they know what they're doing. They brought DMC to Netflix. That shows just nails it. Like, nails Dante, nails all the kind of ethos of it, and you watch, you're like, wow, they nailed it. And then you see the spikes in DMC content, like in games. So these that flywheel, they re-brought that franchise back, and I hope Capcom is, don't know, but I hope Capcom's making something with Devil May Cry, because maybe you'll have a bigger audience now than you would have had if you put it out before that piece of content, right? Is the best way to put it. So that's how I think about it, and like we kind of have this like framework, right? And I would like just hear your iterate on it. So I think in order to succeed, you need to have attention. If you don't have attention, then what are you doing, right? And so, and from attention leads into time, right? So if you have attention on something, then you want to see how much time is accrued to that thing, right? Be a game, right? So that attention can come from in the form of like playing the game, if it's free for sure, but it also can come from consuming content, like you called out. Like, I don't see TikTok, YouTube, other platforms as competition. I see them as how, and this is how we measure it, how can people spend time with your IP? Because the more time they spend with your IP, then the lower funnel is more likely how much are they going to spend on that IP, right? So it goes from attention to time given, and then the time fallacy you would then to go into, then I'm going to give them my money or whatever the economic value, and that's the funnel. And then, and money can also be in the form of like ads, right? You can monetize through ads, right? So it could be form of attention equals time via ads, or attention leads to time leads to revenue via paying for something, right? At some point, right? And I think that's how I'd understand that framework. So making a long form movie is great at driving attention and thus time and thus revenue downstream. And I think the same could be said for TV content, and the same could be said by an insane amount of volume on TikTok too, right? If that, like, Minecraft was in part successful, the movie, because it was incredibly TikTokable with the chicken song, right? Just immutable,
9 second
right?
song, right, or something like that, right? And
Oh my god,
it
that
was
song's
like
so
30
short.
second song. Yeah,
My better half hates that song, but the
yeah.
kids love playing
Every
the car
adult I think
controller.
hates that song. Maybe except you. I think you just said your better half, not you. You love it then.
Oh man, well, I just have a soft spot for Jack Black, and I'm glad he's found a second career in being in kids' gaming movies. Like, good for him, man. Good for him.
Do you feel the same way about Chris Pratt?
Yeah, I
No,
love Chris
screw that.
Pratt. Yeah,
You can't be all those amazing characters.
I have a Guardians poster of literally my Guardians of the Galaxy, my number one MCU movie of all time. Is the poster of, I got a poster of him just standing in the hallway. It's super cool. He's like wearing his little Star-Lord costume. So yeah, I love
That's
Chris Pratt
cool.
as
I'm talking
Star-Lord.
about as Mario and as what did the other character was he at the same time? As he was two animated characters.
Oh, he's Emmett from the Lego movie, by the way.
Lego,
Which
yeah.
I'm not biased, right? With all the Lego that surrounds me in my house, like, no, to be like,
Let's talk.
so maybe I'm just in it.
Let's talk attention, right? Because this week Borderlands came out, and it's been a while since the OG looter shooter has been around. 3 came out to not so positive feedback, a lot of corniness people would have mentioned alongside with Borderlands 3. So now Borderlands 4 comes out to a lot of different types of feedback, some with performance issues, some saying the Randy should just keep his mouth shut because he's being mean, which is very, very Gearbox of him. I feel like that's along the rise. But are you playing Borderland? Any interest in Borderlands? Is it making a mind game?
Share jumping, yeah. So how to talk about this? Our data says that Borderlands 3 was not as successful at its launch, so there's a lot of time to be had in between launch and forever, right? But Borderlands 4 was not as successful in its launch week as Borderlands 3. It's like, okay, and the questions you get is, well, why is that? And like, honestly, I would say like 2/3 or more of it is not really in the control of 2K. And let me kind of parse that out. And I think it just goes to my larger thing about attention and time, right? So, one, I've written about this extensively throughout the summer into the fall. is that this was an insanely packed quarter of IP games launches, right? Like just the the volume of games we're seeing coming out now has always grown year over year, but the volume of like major AAA titles competing with each other at a given time is also increased substantially relative to where it was 5, 6 years ago, right? Where there'd be maybe one or two or three games, big games in a month. Now you're seeing a lot more volume on that one, right? Just more franchises, more games, etc., etc. So that's like I think challenge one that is going to face is inherently just the market. And I probably will write about this in the nearish future. I need to see more of the quarter play out, but like we're seeing more, we call them B tier games this year than we have in previous years, and less A tier games, which means a tier above. And you go, why? Well, if there's all these games coming out at the same time, like June is a really good example. It was a month packed of just B tier games. Like the best game was a B tier game by our estimation grading system, which is a lower ceiling than say an A tier game, which has a much higher launch TAM. And you go, why is that? Well, it's what happens when two or three games launch within a week of each other. Basically, like it's crowded, and people are going to make choices. Share of wallet is up for grabs. Share of time is up for grabs, and your guys are all just basically cannibalizing each other's attention to the point where your ceilings are just much lower because you're all basically in the same window as each other, right? So it's like I think one macro trend I see this year that for them is just unavoidable. They picked their launch date, and the launch date was what it was. And like to that end, like the other thing was like, did they expect Silk Song to come out the week before them? No, like nobody did. Including ourselves. Like nobody knew until Gamescom, and at that point, you are about 3 weeks from your launch. Like, what can you do about it? Not anything, right? Like
Do you
boxes are shipped. You're
do you think
and so
Silksong
like
impacted this?
I think attention is zero sum, and there's only so much attention to go around. And I do think there is a not zero percentage of people that play Silksong that are all that could have played Borderlands 4, at least at its launch, right? Maybe they come back to it, but they're still trying to beat Silksong because it became the zeitgeist game of the moment. And I am pretty certain, I'd have to look at our data, but like it was, and other people's data, it was trending higher on Steam for the most part throughout the week. So you just know that the share of voice on Steam was going more to Silksong than it was to Borderlands, right? Regardless of performance issues, everything else like that. Like I would, and I say all that because like I do think that has effect after the week after. So like performance issues, everything else, I think it has downstream impact on just people's opinion about the game once it's out, and like also so do good reviews, right? So both sides can be true, right? Good reviews, people enjoying something can have a positive impact on it. But just looking at how we think about when it launches, I think that's just a factor of like really what's happening around it. And I don't think it's going to be the only game that it is challenged by just the release window. And I've been pretty transparent honest about this in my writings and Patch Notes newsletter. Follow me on LinkedIn, blah blah blah. Like Greg will be kind enough to sure drop it in there afterwards. But like I've been pretty transparent about this is a pretty big fall, and there's going to be a lot of people that see a slight dip in what I would expect their expectations are. Whereas I think games like Battlefield 6 are going to probably do very well. Forever, I don't know, can't comment, don't know. But like at launch, I think they've done the right thing in terms of glomming attention share from everybody else in the market, and they'll probably reap the rewards when they launch the game.
This is
Um,
not related to that point. Sorry, you can finish up.
oh no, that was about it. I mean, and then just tactically, like the platforms we look at, and this is a bit, I think Twitch is so important for the games of guns. Anyone that makes games with guns that's listening to this stream, I am in the camp that the most important platform to put your game on there as early as you can. Obviously, you want it to be good. You want people to be mean to it, but like Twitch is so important to games with guns as a driver of attention because our metrics show that then everything comes downstream from that, from virality on TikTok to YouTube consumption to everything else. It really just starts at Twitch and it spills down. Like we saw that last year with Marvel Rivals. They were consistently nailing it on Twitch. And you saw this halo effect that would go on for weeks after they activated on Twitch, and then they would stop and they would try to do YouTube content. It wasn't really doing anything for the game in our data set, and then did something else on Twitch, and it would just peak back up in its interest curve, right? So, I, games with guns, Twitch is just so important to that genre or that kind of category of games, right? Shooters.
I guess it's time to start looking for your local Twitch influencer and getting your content in their hands. But I think this performance thing is a bigger thing than people are making it out to be, and I know they're making it out to be a big thing, right? But I was watching this friend of mine, and he was talking about accessibility in gaming. And often, when you think about accessibility in gaming, you think about uh, blind kind of colorblind mode, right? And audio and subtitles and stuff like that. But another form of accessibility that Battlefield took was removing any form of ray tracing in their game. And what that does is it makes it more accessible by more players around the world because they can play on lesser powerful hardware, right? And one of the most common things I heard about the Battlefield was how great it looked and how smooth it ran and how it felt like a next gen game because it wasn't supporting a PS4 and Xbox One. But what Borderlands did was it looks great. Don't get me wrong, right? We have it running here, right? But people can't run the game. I mean, I've heard on the Xbox Series X, which is a console, you expect that to be able to run. Like that after about 2 hours, you have to quit and reload the whole game to kind of clear out the cache and everything. And like, that's nuts. And I get you can't test that stuff, and I'm sure the patch that's coming out today is going to address a lot of that, right? But
Yeah.
in this world of games, when your attention span, like we talked about earlier, is finite, and there's a lot of other games. Like, am I going to pick up Borderlands next? Am I going to wait for Battlefield? Or am I going to go back to Silksong? Right? And I think you have that window, and they're still in that window because it's launched. But like, I think that hurts them. I think that's just shit, for lack of better words.
Yeah, and I also think like it doesn't like as much as our data set stresses the launch week as being incredibly important, and I don't want to devalue it as it's like at all because I do think it's incredibly important. I think knowing that, I think there is always opportunity to re-engage your community and your game with like the next beat, right? And it's really just how do you build comms around that? How do you strategize on that? And when do you actually do that next beat to re-engage audiences? And I think like for any game, like if you know you're going in a release window that is just crazy, like you're like, yeah, we launched a thing, it is wildly packed, we know that our audience is likely to go play Battlefield 6 or something else. Like it's just kind of, I don't want to say that's what Borderlands is, but like just as an example, right? As a stalking horse here, like I would then say like, yeah, so then think about what the next thing is and when you execute the next thing to kind of re-invite people back in, like get the people you're going to get at the beginning and then make sure you have an on-ramp on them once you know like they're going to be done doing a thing, and like how do you re-engage them at that like next point of time. And like I actually think like December is a great month for that sort of stuff. I think it, and like I think you can release games in December, so I'm bullish on that. But I also think like getting them at that point is a really smart idea for any of the games coming out in the fall. Like just thinking like in the falls, get after COD and the Fortnite update, whatever they end up doing, knowing that people are going to leave them at some point. Like that's when you kind of go, okay, great, we know you played other games, I'll be kind of cognizant of that and be self-aware, and then go, now we want you to come back and do something with our IP, right? Whether that be any of the games coming out this fall.
I hear the Simpsons are coming to Fortnite. I'm very excited if that's true. We will see.
I
So,
almost thought you were going to say Call of Duty, and I was like, I think the COD community would just flip a chair.
oh,
And maybe
yeah,
they
yeah.
are in Call of Duty.
All right, let's jump conversations here to a beta game. We are going to. I don't really know much
Ooh.
about
Oh no, are we switching the game now, man? This is fun.
2KXO. Let's see. Boop. Boom. All right.
Ooh,
I don't know much about 2KXO. I've never been a big Riot game player. I know
Jinx.
about
You don't know
League.
Jinx right
Yeah,
there?
so
There she is.
no, I don't know. That's her name. I thought you were jinxing me in general. Yeah, jinx. No, I don't know
Oh,
any of these characters, man. Like, I feel like the bar to get into League got so high right away, and it's just intimidating. And I should watch Arcane because, again, along with
I
our
was gonna say they
Transmedia
have a
con-
nice entry point there to get you introduced to the characters and their stories. It's called Arcane on Netflix, 2 season run. I think they won the Emmy twice in
yeah,
a row.
great music too.
Congratulations to Riot. Yeah, great characters, great story. A little bit about teen rebellion, very YA. Again, an apex of transmedia. I did not write about it in my, but one that comes to mind. There's just so much good stuff, and that's another example of great content. But I digress.
So, what's our mind share looking like for?
Yeah, so I didn't. So Brian, the founder, creator of Mind Game, took a stab at talking about 2K or I mean, sorry, 2XKO, 2XKO. I'm a acronym, right? 2XKO. Got it right. So Ryan's one of the hard things to measure. A lot of the other kind of like say channels and tools out there, they have their own launcher, which makes it incredibly challenging. We've always tracked Riot because we are very much looking at the behavioral signals of a game through its launch to the channels we look at. And so right now I'm just gonna look at my data right now just to pull it up in real time. So apologies. Riot has always been successful at like launching games on a pretty short ramp. So I think we basically look at like 12 to 16 weeks as our kind of normal go to market ramp. We don't know when this game's going to come out, but we do know like that's historically what they've done. Now, obviously, the beta could have things that make them pull the game back, and I think that's totally warranted. And people would just say, oh, "Okay, that makes a lot of sense." So yeah, so that all that table settings there. If we were just to look at the weeks to launch based on what we think it'll be, like where is it trending towards? It's trending like at a level of like a Street Fighter, a little bit below that, right? So it's not at the tier of Mortal Kombat. Well, let's really set the tiers of fighting games.
Yeah.
The tier that no one hits and never will is Smash. So Smash sells 40 million copies. No fighting game gets even a fourth of that, or about a fourth of that. The best Mortal Kombat I think sells around 12 million copies. So like
That's your
Smash
S
lives
tier
in its
then? I'm gonna make a
own.
little chart for that. S tier is Smash.
Smash. It just lives in its own world, right? Its own thing, right? But they're very infrequent with their games. Clearly, we're going on a decade without a new Smash, so let's just put that right. But it is its own thing. Below that is Mortal Kombat, right? So typically, Mortal Kombat is the A tier fighting game, right? Now, last year, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero broke into that, right? So they did crack through that like kind of that threshold and was a really fastest selling fighting game since Mortal Kombat. So they own the crown there. Congrats to
I wanna argue some of this. Is this known data or is this your? Because I would say Street Fighter is an A tier for sure, maybe even higher than Mortal Kombat. Although I'm a Mortal Kombat fan, when you look at the esports leagues that do fighting, I thought Street Fighter was significantly big. And I don't know. I'm just taking a blind throw.
No, I mean our data would say no. I think I've read other data that says Mortal Kombat
That's
sells
fair.
better.
Okay.
I think
You
I've
know
seen
better
that
than
in
me.
Circana, etc. Yeah, so I think Mortal Kombat is just above Street Fighter.
Okay.
Although Street Fighter it has a very steep subculture, right? I think Mortal Kombat reaches a more mass audience. Let's just
Okay.
put it that way, right? And maybe it was helped by making a banger '90s movie that stuck with the millennials forever, like with a great song. Like maybe they versus the Jean-Claude Van Damme version of Street Fighter, which is atrocious and awful. So
I
like
don't know.
maybe that was the beginning of it all, right?
It's great to see Blanca in real life.
But to speak to Street Fighter and give Capcom credit, like the assets I've seen so far, I'm like, yeah, that looks great. Looks like they're nailing the vibes of Street Fighter. So I think that is, to be fair to them, I think that's how I would objectively look at it. So yeah. So based on our data, so back to what I was saying, like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero did incredibly well last fall, something that we saw coming, but it was like a sequel to a franchise, like one of our early conversations, Greg, if you recall, like we stayed like if a franchise goes dormant for a long period of time, when it comes back, it's just like boom, people are really excited
Gangbusters.
about it. The style of that game was very like a spiritual successor to previous Dragon Ball games that have been on the
Hmm.
shelf for a long time. So I think part of it was that. Part of it was the assets they put on YouTube. It's basically like, hey, do you want to play Cell Saga? We're just gonna show you it in the game. And I'm like, well, that's brilliant. Like I think Dragon Ball has a huge nostalgia factor, and if you're basically value driving, it's like come play Cell Saga. That sounds awesome. A lot of people probably pick up the game just to do that and like tinker around with it. So it's just wildly successful. And like, whereas Riot's game right now, it's just below that right now. But like Valorant is a really good example. They definitely have the ability to drive past everything else and create their own tier. Like I would never, ever, ever, ever bet against Riot, because they have proven at least twice, if not thrice, that they can be market makers in the sectors they decide to go into. See MOBAs, see shooters like tactical shooters, or you want to call Valorant, right? Even Teamfight Tactics is a solid game, and they own a sizable portion of the attention share of the market across their IP. And I also think that every market operates in what I would call an oligopoly of attention. Sorry to be very in the current lingo of how we talk about everything, but I do think like a lot of genres will find 2 to 3 key games that basically eat up the massive lion's share of attention, and everything else exists on a long tail or mid tail thereafter, right? So, and it's really hard to break into that group if you're coming in super late. So, really good example, World of Warcraft, still the largest MMO in the world. Nothing has usurped it. It is going to go on for as long as they want it to go on. And it's just a sunk cost thing with people. It's time. It's time. I put all this time into it. I put all this money investment down from time as investment in time. And then it's just the social graph. Like I have my friends in here and I have to not only convince myself, I have to convince my 5 to 8 favorite people in the world to transfer over with me. And that's just a really hard thing to do. So I think fighting games, because they're so infrequent in between the games, ish, right? They're ripe for a game like this game to come in and maybe try to break into that like kind of tier of top tier games. Because again, Smash doesn't come out all that often, right? If ever, right? We're going on a decade almost of like no Smash. Mortal Kombat also a infrequent title ish, right? Every couple of years is a new MK, but then it's not built to be a forever game either. So not having played this game, I don't know if this is following the typical Riot Games live service model, but I have to imagine it is, and I think there might be room for that, and we'll see. That's
Yeah,
my
it
read.
gives me a lot of, I know it's not the same style game, but vibes from Rainbow Six Siege, where you have many operators, they all have different skills, and you keep the game alive by keeping each operator unique until you get to a point where there's too many, and it's hard for a new player to come in because the barrier to entry is too high. And like you, I would never bet against Riot. If there's one studio I probably trust more than anyone right now, it's probably Riot, because they've proven that they can do a lot. They have a great community team. They have a great just kind of thing, and I don't get into their games, but I
They're
just know like their reputation, the style of game that they make. But to your point, fighting games are unique. Will their audience translate to a fighting game? I don't think League is far off. It's not a fighting game, but fighting games, I feel like it's such a unique niche that to break in, it's hard, but they have all the pillars already put in place because of the other games.
Yeah, I actually have data here, so let me read it off. I was reading Brian's newsletter. Shout out to Brian Rogers. I think his newsletter is great. If you don't follow it, follow it. But he had put in there like Riot collectively owns about 3.5% of the total gaming market. So just know that we look at hundreds of thousands of games. So Riot owning 3.5% of the market is pretty dominant and puts them in the top 5 of all companies holding attention share around the world, right? So that again, they're pretty good at what they do, right? They're very good at capitalizing on their community, really good about like kind of making the next thing for them to on-road into. And so if the floor for this game is just to keep the people in the Riot ecosystem longer, then I think they'll take that win. If this game is meant to be a bridge to new people, well, remains to be seen, right? That's a whole separate question I don't necessarily have the answer to, like offhand. Like, is this going to drive in new people to the Riot ecosystem? Maybe. Maybe it's an easier on ramp to play as Jinx in this game than it is to play as her in League.
That's the most I've read about it was people are excited to get people out of the league format and be able to play with them in a better format like fighting. So that's what I've heard that people have enjoyed about it. The beta was out 9 days ago. They said the full game's going to come out this
And
year, and
if you watch Arcane, which you should, Greg, you should watch Arcane. It's very much a lot of the plot beats are these two characters fight in a pretty epic anime battle. You're like, oh, that's cool. So like, look, they were selling me this game in other medium before this game even came out. So tip of the cap.
I will watch it with my son at 7 years old. I feel like he's probably at that age where he may not be able to watch it, but we will watch it and enjoy it together. Maybe not.
It's a little dark, a little dark.
The whole world's a little
But you know
dark
what?
right
If you
now.
if you like, if you watch '89 Batman, I think you can handle this, right? That would be the threshold.
That's my threshold is actually Jurassic Park, the first one. I remember when it coming out, that coming out as a kid, and it was like terrifying. And then you see, and it's not as scary, but there's terrifying parts of that movie when you're a kid.
Oh my gosh, I love that movie. We're going completely off topic. That is my favorite Spielberg movie ever. It's not a popular, maybe it's a popular take. I don't know. I think it's his best movie. It's great, short. It's got dinosaurs. It's everything that makes Spielberg awesome. It's my personal favorite
It's
Spielberg
definitely
movie.
up there, huh? That's a whole nother conversation we're gonna have to think about it and talk about. That's yeah,
S tier Spielberg. Go back to the S
Band
tier
of
chart. S
Brothers.
tier. Uh
It's not a movie.
yeah. I mean, Yeah, it's not a movie, right? Yeah.
It's not.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say the Raiders of the Lost Ark? I mean, that would be
Nah, you
the other one. No?
gotta think about it.
Don't get me started on indie. I can't.
Did you play the
Too
game?
many
Are
people.
you an Xbox person? Do you have a game? Do you have it?
No, I famously wrote about why this game was going to succeed last fall, and then it didn't succeed by my definition of it, and kind of I gotta leave them alone at some point. Just like I feel bad. I think they just released the same week as Marvel Rivals was a massive mistake. And then Path of Exile 2 came on top of it all. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, then now you're just like back to my earlier point. Like, you can't, competition is zero sum and people play other things before you.
At least people on PlayStation will be able to enjoy it. Everyone
Now,
can play Indiana Jones. It's available everywhere on anything.
yes, where do we want to jump to next? I mean, like, I'm really having a good time watching this game. I was like, oh man, I should try to get into this. I would totally like mess
Maybe
around with
we
this
could
game
play
just
it
to
one of
see
these
like.
weeks. We'll invite people on to challenge us. Do we know when at Riot we could bring on and we can challenge some of the game designers
Anyone
to
on
it?
the audience that's at Riot, it's on whatever platform where we're connected to, and let us know if you want to play this game. That'd be
Exactly. Yeah.
fun.
Hit us up. Come out live. I want to talk about UGC. I don't know how much you get into UGC, but I find it as a fascinating topic in gaming. And it's, I had the CMO of the company Overwolf on the podcast this weekend. By 2030, they want to pay out over $1 billion to game creators, not game creators, content creators, right? The people creating assets
The
or
mods.
UGC comments, mods, right? So mods and all this stuff. So they have a fund that's funding people to build content for games. And I think it's a really cool platform because we spoke with a gentleman by the name of Sandy. He's out of Oakland or San Diego. It makes sense. Sandy out of San Diego. And he's one of the top creators for Arc, and he played it with his daughter, and his daughter loved it, so he decided to start building content because of that. And the fact that he built content for a game that he loved, again, this comes into transmedia. This is like everything we talk about connects. And when I start talking about all this stuff on the podcast and stuff, it's just super cool to hear how it all connects, right? So Sandy started building content because his daughter was sick and she couldn't go to school anymore. So they connected over games. And he wasn't a gamer, but learned to play Ark. And his daughter said, I want to build this stuff in Ark. And all of a sudden he started building this stuff in Ark for her, and other people started seeing it. And he's found that these platforms can enable him to sell it. And he started creating this content that's giving Ark or other games longer legs to keep going. And I just think it's this really cool thing that's going to take the, I know it's already
I,
here, but I think it's going to make an impact in gaming.
I mean, I 100% agree. Shout out to Overwolf. I know people there. But what I would say to that is the question that guy would pose is, why are people playing games that are 15 years old to this day? World of Warcraft aside, but like Skyrim. Skyrim still has a massive audience despite it being. I mean, I think Bethesda even half a decade ago joked that it was gonna be on your toaster. Like, we're gonna bring Skyrim to your toaster or something like that, and they made that as a joke, right? But like, why does a game like that have infinite life? Because of the mod community, right? It's just like because so many people mod on it and make it into something else, iterate on the original art that was put out there, and they're able to via tools and platforms like Overwolf. Like, that's, and I don't know if Overwolf is part of that with Skyrim, no clue, but like on the naivete on that one. But I could just say, like, broadly speaking, this trend is why we constantly say to those coming to market that 85% of attention is not up for grabs on a given week because people are going to continue to play what they already have. That's well beyond the majority of gamers. And then the question go is, well, why? Or what are they playing? And then, well, why? And you're like, well, because the content's always fresh. People are always iterating on it. They're reinventing things that are there at a zero marginal cost. And what I mean by that is, like, you have very big companies spending all sorts of money developing a game, and you're going against sometimes the infinite world of everybody else, right? Which is a battle you cannot win, right? When you're going against the everyone else in the world, because you never know. There's so much bad stuff that gets put out there, like 99.9% of stuff that is iterative on is probably never going to work or bad. But like the 1% or the 0.1% that breaks through in such a manner that it just creates a forever long tail in these things, right? And that's just the everybody versus a very small team, and that's like a frightening reality. But like, it's not unique to gaming either. It's like every form of media has that same challenge. If you just look at video as a thing, like you have like the middle is falling out where one end of the spectrum of video stuff, like movies, TV shows, it's incredibly premiumized. And the other side is becoming incredibly UGC. There's no middle anymore. It's just falling out. It's gone, right? There's no middle. It's either you're this IP, super heavy, or your other side, UGC, mass volume, lottery ticket if you make it or not, and you're monetizing. But sometimes those people don't even care. They're just trying to make something for someone else. They don't really think about the commercial side of it. They're just doing it to do it, right? Because they're passionate about it. They're doing it for something else. So like what you just said there really kind of rings true. Like how I think about these things it's what I think. Like that's what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting, because certain games don't need it, and certain games will thrive by it. And GTA 6 will be a really interesting example to see how they implement it, right? We know Battlefield, and we can talk about Battlefield. They're working with Godot. You can build your own content in Godot, and you have your own maps, which is really cool because Godot also wants to be noticed more because of the whole Unity thing, and they need more publicities. And this is a great way to put a community in front of Godot. And then you have, again, GTA 6. I think they're working with people from Roblox to build experiences in there as well, right? So you're seeing these AAA massive titles embrace this. I think forever games are really bad for the industry, although they're very fun, don't get me wrong. But I mean, Fortnite, for better or for worse, is one of the best free games you're ever going to get, and there's no reason to put it down, and that means it's going to hurt a lot of other games, and that's an unfortunate side effect of creating a beast.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree and I disagree with that. I just think like the presumption that the consumer has to pick up something new forever and have to continue to pay someone else to play something new, I think is I think that's unfair too, right? Like why do they have to run the capitalist hamster wheel of sorts and like continually consume new pay. Like I think that's a bit of the disservice to the consumer. If they really like something they've already paid good money for, like almost like look at it as a book. Like if they really want to read like the Harry Potter series in an endless loop, then that's their and they bought the book once and maybe they'll buy the next edition and next edition, but it's like kind of right to do that. It's like I get it. It sucks if you're in the business of making something new and hoping people come in and engage with it, and it does make it a lot more challenging. So I understand that, but I also sympathize with the other side, whereas maybe the consumer just wants to do what they already love to do, and they found the thing that they're willing to spend their time on, right? And just you just have to find ways to give them something closer to what they want and find ways to draw attention to what you've created is probably the other piece. Like you can make people something they want to play, but if nobody knows it exists, then it's unfortunately never going to find an audience either, as good as it might be.
And that is discoverability, the next step of this problem of how do we get noticed, and that can be for a whole
Well,
nother
that's the
episode
biggest.
because that's
That I think is the biggest problem facing the industry, or biggest. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but like it would be in my top three for sure. I just think discoverability is so hard, and I don't think the platform ecosystem is as incentivized as you'd want them to be to really kind of solve for that. And by platforms, I mean just Steam is one. Like there's just not it's not necessarily in their incentive to make a TikTok algorithm where everybody sees the content they want to see. Like it's just, and it's also hard to do that. It's not like why is gaming more like TikTok where people get different feeds and everyone's experiences are uniquely different. It's like that's really hard to do, right? And then the other side of the incentive is like some of these platforms make their own games. Valve biggest game on Steam is continuously CS:GO. They also own CS:GO. The second biggest game on Steam, most of the time, is Dota 2. They also own Dota 2, right? So they are incentivized as an organization to put their content first, however they do it, or people are there to play that kind of content first too, right? So it's just like the incentive structure of these like platform ecosystems when they also become owned and operators of the content that exists, or at least a subset of the content, right? That makes discoverability that much harder, I would say.
It's such a unique problem, and I think we should maybe save the topic for another episode because I feel like there's a whole bunch we can unpack there. But I remember
Oh
some of
yeah.
my core memories were walking through Comp USA. I don't know if you had Comp USA by you, right, or Circuit City, and like going to the computer game section and seeing these monster boxes because they couldn't make computer games in smaller boxes, and like and that was
I
discoverability back then. Then Steam came along, it was great. Like you can't shit on Steam for them solving a problem that needed to be solved years ago and no one finding a better solution yet. Are there better solutions? Yeah, maybe, but maybe we need to discover those better solutions. I mean, Pokey is cool, Itch is cool, those websites are cool, but they're not powerful enough. You have Epic Games, you have other launchers, right? You have Xbox launcher now. I mean, are we trying to solve the wrong
Yeah,
problem here? I don't know.
yeah, and I think like, oh my gosh, we anyone that listens to this point of the conversation with me and Greg and wants the table, please hit us up. I would love to have this as like a conversation because I'm incredible. I don't have. I will stately say I don't. I know the problem, the solution. I throw my hands in the air and say typically what happens is that aggregators kind of form, and there's usually a monopoly and aggregation where one thing rules them all. I know people get very worried about that, but when they do that, then they are incentivized to make like enough people happy in their ecosystem to basically hold on to aggregation because they own consumer demand, and to hold on consumer demand forever, they have to give all the consumers a unique thing of what they want, right? And so anyways, so like that's the how to get to that point, or is that where we want to go? I don't know, but like that I think discoverability is the number one issue facing the everyone, one of the top three, and I think it wants a whole different deep dive on that. And I would want to come like a little. I would love everybody else's opinion because I'll just look at it from the data perspective and say, yeah, it's discoverability definitely an issue, right? How do you let consumers know a thing exists without tranches of money or decade plus of community building? I guess it's like and it's like both are hard, right? Tranches of money, you have to have tranches of money. Some people do, some people don't. And then the other side is you have to have a lot of time and a lot of
Just go viral on
ground up
TikTok.
community
It's not
building.
hard.
Oh my gosh. I, what's funny is that you see mobile games doing A/B testing on TikTok to go viral. It's like an actual strategy, and I intuitively it makes sense to me. Like, oh yeah, these orgs should do A/B testing on TikTok on content to see if they can crack the algo, because the acquisition is a thumb point away to downloading your game, and
Yep.
maybe it is more effective than ads. So I that is a thing that people do, right? It's like lean in. Like if we can't build our own discovery engine, well, let's just use the one that's really good at it exists to see if we can crack that, right? And like it's a strategy. I don't know if it's worked at a profitable level. Can't comment, but I do see people do it. And I do see in our data that they do see an uptick when they go viral on TikTok. I think that's incredibly interesting.
Well, you've now spoken about oligopolies and monopolies, and I feel like that's a place where we should wrap it for the day. Are there any other topics you want to chat on before the top of the hour here? Want to let us know what you're
Yeah.
playing?
Well, yeah. I am still playing Donkey Kong with my kid. We beat it. Some great third act surprises. I would not make it my game of the year. I don't think it's as good as Odyssey. There's my review. I got just thrown a bunch of DLC by them, so that's my son's next kind of foray. And then I'm really excited about the Final Fantasy Tactics remastered. I
Yeah,
forget
we've
what they
seen you
gave it the
posting
name for,
about
but I'm
that. You're like
yeah,
itching
that's
for that.
awesome. So that's what I'm interested in terms of just everything else. Yeah, I would say like we get a lot of questions. I appreciate all those who listen to this and begin to follow us. I would say that some of the questions we get is like if we do what we do, why are we trying to do it this way as opposed to working in the shadows and picking stocks? And I'm like, well, we're not stock traders. So, but if any stock traders listens to the 57th minute of this and wants to leverage our data to pick stocks, I go for it. By all means, tell us what you think. But just not what we do. We did this because we wanted to the challenges. Like honestly, that's where Brian started. He wanted to visualize the challenges that face the gaming industry. Until you put like 6,000 dots on a screen and say this is the market, you really can't humanly conceptualize that this is the market, right? If that makes sense, right? So you just have to see it, and once you see it, then I think you start asking the right questions of, wait, we only own like a half a point of market share in the whole gaming market in terms of the attention. Like, yeah, and like I think you can at least begin the dialogue of then how do we solve some of the challenges of garnering more attention, thus players and everything else, and like how do we convince players to come over to us, or why did our game not succeed? And it's not always because a lot of games that are not done make a lot of audience on day one. It's really just like how do you find the attention in the market to to sell your journey to the players, so then get enough of them on board to then iterate. Because I think games should be iterative too. Like I'm sorry for Borderlands right now, but I think there's a path for them to fix the game, to communicate to the community that they've done well, and kind of press forward with a otherwise really looking awesome looking game, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so you can find me. I'm calling these Mind Game Data, Screen Engine ASI person. I'm on LinkedIn. I write a weekly newsletter called Patch Notes. Subscribe, please. If you want to talk about anything else, like hit me up. And I love my conversations with Greg. They're fun, and I love watching fighting game videos while we do them now. So this should be a staple now. You sold me on the game. Like you did more marketing than I got from
There you
Riot, but
go.
I
Tell
know
Riot
that
they
you're
owe me
not marketing me
commission
right now.
here. I like this. We should get a stream game. If we're not playing a game, we should stream something. It's more exciting. But Colin, I always appreciate you coming on. You should check out mindgamedata.com. Got a lot of cool data there. I'd love to next time talk about it. You talk about these shifts. Can you tell an ROI of, hey, if we can make a 1% difference or a 0.5% difference here, what does that mean to me? And I'd love to break down those numbers one day and see how that plays out, because I think there's some cool stuff there. And should I be putting money behind Steam? What does that mean? And stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone out there, all seriousness, if anyone out there wants to talk about discoverability in gaming, I am open to having that like larger roundtable discussion. Would love different POVs on this, just because I think this is a really big challenge facing the industry, and I think it should be talked about more and brainstorm collectively to figure out what the solutions might be. Where it's not just, well, Fortnite owns everybody forever, so throw up our hands. I think that's unfair and untrue. So it should have that as a dialogue.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you everyone that stuck around. We will make sure we have all of Colin's information in the post so you can find all of his stuff. I am Greg Posner from playerdriven.io. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back in a couple weeks here, and let us know what you want to hear.
Thanks. Bye, Greg. Talk to y'all later. Bye.